much, Chairman, Ranking Member Padilla. I believe that people who break the law have to go to jail, and people who steal taxpayer money have to go to jail, and that we need to root out fraud in every state. But I got to say, as someone that prosecuted fraud cases for 8 years, the person who recommended Andy Lugar, who did such a tremendous job in exposing this fraud as the U.S. Attorney for the state of Minnesota, and then charged 75 cases, as the person who actually recommended Todd Blanche to Todd Blanche that he put in Joe Thompson as the acting U.S. Attorney. A specific ask I made, and then he did it, because Joe Thompson was the one that led these fraud cases in Minnesota. As a person who actually called the Justice Department years ago and asked for more resources for the Minnesota U.S. Attorney's Office so they would go after these cases, the saddest thing that has happened, besides 3,000 ICE agents landing on the streets of our town, is that we have now lost the 14 assistant U.S. attorneys that were taking on these fraud cases. And they left because they were asked, by all news accounts, to investigate Renee Good, one of 2 of 3 fatalities in Minneapolis in January. 2 of 3 were committed by ICE agents or border control. They were asked to investigate her wife, and they did not feel that was ethical, and they left. This is incredible talent to investigate fraud that left that U.S. Attorney's Office. So that's something, if we're going to go after fraud, losing that talent is a huge problem. I guess I'd start with you, Mr. Cato, because Mr. Bier of Cato, because you had, I say, passion for going after the fraud, but also for understanding what this Metro surge has all been about. You wrote, benefits fraud is a serious issue, and whoever commits it should be held accountable, but that spending billions on operations like Metro Surge will increase the deficit rather than invest in better systems and investigations to control benefits fraud. I would agree, as we've seen in Minnesota, losing that talent, losing the work that has to be done and should be done on a bipartisan basis is such a problem. Can you describe where you think Congress's decision to spend $75 billion on ICE, making 3 times its budget, making it bigger than the FBI, has led to what's going on in Minnesota and ironically cut back on the fraud prosecutions?
Yeah, so absolutely. We're actually pulling people and resources away from criminal law enforcement. ICE is recruiting people from the FBI. They've already diverted 2,600 individuals, but they're also hiring people away from police, local police, as well as federal law enforcement into the mass deportation effort, which is not targeted toward criminals. It's not targeted toward fraudsters. It's targeted towards the people who are living their lives peacefully in the United States and contributing to their communities.
Thank you. We know the surge has had huge economic costs. Locally, the Minneapolis Economic Development Director estimates the city is losing $10 to $20 million every week. Estimates are it's costing about $18 million a week, the taxpayers of this country, for the ICE agents that are there, for all the hotels, for all the extra hours of local police, for all the jail time. And you explained what's really happening with the numbers, of which I support, going after the worst of the worst. I support going after the violent offenders, but this is all costing huge amounts of money for the people of Minnesota and the people across the nation. Can you discuss the administration's actions and how they are hurting our economy and costing taxpayers?
Well, like I said in my prepared remarks, in Minnesota, the immigrant population has reduced the deficits at the federal, state, and local level by almost $140 billion over the last 30 years. Even if you look at the illegal immigrant population nationwide, it's about a $1.7 trillion reduction in deficits over the last 30 years. And it's because these people work, because they are increasing the economic activity, because they're providing goods and services to us as Americans that we have these positive economic effects.
Thank you. Ms. Gambler, the data analysis from the firm Optum identified widespread vulnerabilities in the state's Medicaid program recently. that allowed questionable billing to go undetected. Can you discuss what GAO recommends to states, and you can do it in writing later as well, to strengthen these programs? Clearly, so much work has to be done in the state of Minnesota on how these grants were allowed, and then, of course, how they were monitored afterward. And I wish that's what we were focusing on instead of indicting an entire population group, which includes police officers, firefighters, doctors, nurses. Please answer. Thanks.
Sure, I'll answer briefly, Senator, and happy to provide more information afterward. But GAO has issued a fraud risk framework that lays out leading practices that agencies should take to help upfront prevent, detect, identify, and then address and mitigate fraud risks in federal programs. And so those leading practices are really helpful for agencies to adopt practices relating to conducting fraud risk assessments, making sure they have a strategy in place, and then making sure that they're targeting resources and their anti-fraud activities to the areas of greatest risk. And those types of leading practices really help an agency have in place a process for managing fraud risks at a strategic level.
Senator Moody.